Thank
Right.
you guys. Thank you so much for having me. It's my first time being here with you in this community. And I want to say that I've known Annie personally, socially for like 2 decades now as a friend. And one of the things that I love the most about her, other than her ability to be unabashedly herself, a yenta living her best yenta life at all times, um, I love the fact that she's so willing to reinvent herself, from a TV actress to a stage storyteller to a TikTok sensation in her 80s to an author again. And I find it, for myself, I find it quite inspiring. And the other thing that I love about Annie is that she makes me laugh like that 13-year-old girl with soda coming out of your nose laughing. Like she's really funny. And her book, even though the essays are very personal, very insightful, covering a broad spectrum of her life in entertainment, her home life, her Jewish life. It's also very funny. It's just peppered with one-liners, and I can't do it justice. So I just wanted to read you a single line, one or two of her lines from the book that I think are, the first one's very appropriate for this crowd. She says things like, William Shakespeare was not Jewish. No Jew could write a play called All Is Well That Ends Well. So
I'm gonna laugh at
I'm gonna laugh
that.
at that one. And then another of my favorite lines from this particular book is and I'm a frequent traveler, so I appreciate this one. My favorite sound is not a baby laughing or a gentle summer rain. My favorite sound is that ding on a plane, indicating that the seatbelt sign has gone off. I just I find that one funny too. Anyway, I guess that leads to my first question for you, Annie. These lines, they're so funny, they're so pithy, they're so insightful. How the heck do you come up with this stuff? Like, do you sit down to write in a cafe or do they just come to you on the airplane?
Oh, well, I sit at my computer all day long, but oddly enough, some of my best ideas happen in odd places, two odd places. Taking a walk alone in nature. And when I say nature, my idea of nature is, going to the public park that's closest to me. So taking a walk, or oddly enough, being in the shower, because I think that your brain keeps working even when you're not aware of it. And sometimes I get real inspirations during those odd moments. But as far as how I come up with it, I just, they say that basically that comedy comes from pain. People who have had pain or people who suffer in some ways. I'm a very anxious, obsessive, depressed person, basically. And the only way for me to exist is to see the world through the prism of humor. I think humor is healing. I don't call myself, by the way, comedian ever, because comedians are about jokes. I call myself a humorist because it's a way, it's a more philosophical definition of someone who sees life in a certain way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that does. And since you bring up comedy and humor, I wanted to ask you, I think we're all curious about Seinfeld, about how you ended up on Seinfeld, what that experience was like for you.
Well, one of the themes of my book is always say yes. I don't regret anything I've ever done. I do regret things I didn't do. And what happened with Seinfeld was it was 1990 or 91. The show was not known. It was not a big hit yet. And my agent called me to say there's a couple of lines on this new show, and a better known actress in my agency had turned it down because she said the role was too small. And I have no self-respect. And so I thought, yeah, sure, I'll go in. And I went in, and I can't drive because I'm a New Yorker, and had to get from my house to CBS in the Valley. And I practiced the night before to make sure that I avoided the highway. I can't drive on highways, but you can go through Cahuenga. And I went for this audition, and I accidentally found myself suddenly in the speed lane, the fast lane of the Hollywood freeway. And I had one exit in which to cross something like 6 hours of rush hour traffic in
Wow.
order to get. So I literally risked my life to get this audition. And when I got it and when I did it, we came home and we watched it. And my husband, Benny, said, I don't get it. It's not about anything.
Yeah.
Now he never goes to bed without watching at least 2 or 3. I'm curious, Hans, how many people still watch Seinfeld? I'm curious to see.
I didn't
Not
know
that
anyone.
many.
So where do you even watch it? On Hulu
Oh,
or?
it's on all the time. It's on all
Hmm.
the time. It's on constantly. Most people I know watch at least 2 or 3 episodes a day.
Hmm.
So when I think about and then I didn't know that my role would reoccur, and I didn't know they also gave me a second role. So I'm one of the few actors who played 2 roles. So I got a lot out of this, and also, not to be crass, but I got a lot of money because the show was such a hit that
Yeah.
since 1991, I have very few lines. I once counted them. I have something like 27 lines in all 4 or 5 episodes that I did. From those 27 lines, I have earned in residuals over $100,000.
Wow.
Now, so I sometimes think about the actors who said no, the role is too small for me. And that's why I say one of the themes in my book is say yes. You do not know what saying yes is going to lead to. And I'm sure you all of you here have had experience with something like that. I might want to hear about them later.
Absolutely. Well, that's actually leads to another question I had been meaning to ask you later, but I'll ask you now. We've talked about this personally in the past, so I know a little, but everyone else doesn't. We've talked about what it means to be a woman today, what it means to be an older woman today, and what it means to be a Jewish woman today. And I'm curious, I have two questions around that. One is, what was it like to be all three of those things in entertainment back when you were doing Seinfeld in the earlier years, a Jewish
Uh,
woman of a certain age in entertainment?
yeah, not good. Not good at all. Those are 3 big negatives. The good news is, in certain ways, things are getting better. Like my TikTok experience is the first time in my life. And by the way, everybody, I'm 85.
Yeah,
And I
we're going
have
to talk about TikTok in a
but
second.
my TikTok fans are over 400,000, and they are telling me things. Now, these are young people and not necessarily Jewish people. And they are saying things to me I have never heard in my life, that I'm beautiful, that I'm glamorous, that I've got style. Today, if a casting call went out for an attractive older woman, I would not be seen for it, because Hollywood's idea of an attractive older woman is Helen Mirren or Holland Taylor. I'm too Jewy looking. I'm too what they call charactery, but charactery is a euphemism for ethnic. And I have suffered a lot because of it, and I've been very angry because of it. But now I'm starting to be celebrated for all the things I always apologize for. And that's on a lot of levels that as I look back now, I'm sorry that I ever apologized about anything, because everything I have is worthwhile. Does that make sense to anybody? Nod your head if you agree with me.
Yeah, I mean, what was that like back in the day, though? Did you experience any sort of anti-Semitism or
Are you
any
kidding me?
sexism? Tell
It's
us
not, I
about.
don't know if you call it anti-Semitism, because here comes the ugly news. The prejudice against seeing Jewish looking women on screen, unfortunately, comes from Jewish industry executives. So I don't know if you call that I don't know what you call that. But at one
Self-love,
point,
yeah.
and I will tell you, and this is true, I was submitted for a role on a TV show, and the director, who was Jewish, said, no, we can't see her. She's too Jewish looking. And the role was for the role of a rabbi.
Oh
And the
my
casting
God.
director told me that the director said to her, don't bring in any Jewish looking women. We want to make sure that the character is likable.
Oh,
Okay. And that's what the industry has always been. If you think about who played Golda Meir, who played Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who played, go on and on and on. No Jewish looking woman who just played Steven Spielberg's mother, for God's sake.
who? I
No
don't.
Jewish looking woman has ever played an important Jewish character. The only person who's broken those rules have been Barbara Streisand, thank God. But no one beside her, ever,
But you say that's
ever.
changing. You feel like that's changing
That
in
part, the
entertainment.
casting part, no. Casting part is not changing. I mean, just now, as I say, Steven Spielberg's mother, played by someone who is now, I'm not saying that the actress has to be Jewish. I'm saying she should be believable ethnic, and vice versa. Jews can play Italians and Latinos. Latinos and Italians can play Jews. They look alike. They have the same tempo in their speech. You know what I mean? I'm not saying only Jews can play Jews and only, but the tradition of what Sarah McCoy, whitewashing the appearance of Jewish women, it's alive and well. I don't see that changing. What I do see changing, that's the bad news. Now for the good news. I think there's a new interest in older women, and it's about time. Am I allowed to say bad words on here? I don't know.
Yes.
I'm just in a movie. Have any of you seen the movie Thelma? Just opened a couple weeks ago. I'm in that movie. It's a charming movie. It's silly, but it's charming. It's nice summer fun. The star, June Squibb, is 94 years old. And my friend, Bunny Levine, has a wonderful scene in it. She's 95. I was the kid in that movie. And there have been a lot of movies lately about older women, showing them to be romantic and stylish and sexual and attractive and fun-loving. There's a whole slew of them with Diane Keaton and I forget who else. There's been a whole bunch of them lately. And I'm very glad to see that, because I think the time has finally come when young people are looking to older women for wisdom and inspiration. And they should, because we are and have it, because we have life experience, which has taught us things that it's incumbent upon us to share with younger people. So I think that is a movement, and I'm very happy to see that happening.
Well, that's a sort of natural segue to what I had wanted to talk about, the younger generation and about TikTok. How at age, in your mid 80s, did you end up on TikTok? And why do you think that you're such a smash, like a viral sensation with almost 500,000 followers? And I just want to give everybody an example. I went to lunch with Annie a few months ago. This happens every time we go out. And the waiter in his early 20s came running over, a really handsome young black man, and he just said, "Oh my God, you're my hero. Oh my God," and he couldn't get enough. This happens, how did you end up on TikTok? Tell us that story, and why do you think you resonate so with the younger Gen Z?
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out. It's been an amazing miracle. I got on it again. The theme of my book is, just say, why not? And a young person suggested I should go on TikTok. I told her she was crazy. My background, besides acting, what I do is something called storytelling.
Right.
You can hear me on the Moth, and really what the book is for the most part, a collection of humorous essays. And I've done that a lot. I do spoken word. That's why I came down here. That's why Ari brought me a couple of years ago to tell stories. So she thought I should reduce those stories to 1 minute sound bites and do them on TikTok. And I told her she was out of her mind. And she said, trust me, you will go viral. I don't know how she knew that. And I still don't understand. But here's the interesting thing. And I think this is a Jewish thing. I think that as Jews, particularly as Jewish women, I think we underestimate our value. I think we underestimate our power. I always considered myself a performer, and I've done solo shows. I've done them all over the world. I always considered my audience to be limited. My basic core audience was Jewish women like myself, urban, intellectual, liberal, I would say. I don't know if that's true for everybody
Artistic.
here. And, artistic, slightly hippie and over a certain age. That was my target audience. And that's who I always went to. I was a member of Jewish Women's Theater of LA. I was a member of other Jewish women. I always thought that was my audience. As it turns out,
I hope to age into that exact audience. That's the perfect storm of things, but go on.
it's a pretty good group. But much to my amazement, the people who worship me, and I'm not being immodest here, they really
They
tell me
really
things, you're my
do.
queen, you're iconic, you're my queen, I want to be you, I want to live. Are young kids, not necessarily Jewish, of every color, every background, as Deb says. I get stopped in the street by young black men. Did
All
I
the
ever
time.
think that young black men would be and when I say to them, what is it? Why do you relate to me? And they say, you know what they say? And I've been thinking about, what does this mean to you? they say, because you're authentic.
Mm.
And I think by that they mean they know that I speak my truth, and that I do, but I have been criticized for that all my life, that I'm very blunt and honest about my opinions. And these kids are seeing that as a positive. I've always apologized for that. And so again, it's another theme in the book that don't be trapped by other people's negative opinions of you. You could be told something all your life. You're too this. I was always told you're too talkative, you're too opinionated, you're too controlling, which Ari saw a half hour ago as we were preparing to come here. I'm bossy. I'm always telling everybody, you're too this, you're too that, and you're too Jewish looking. And now I'm being celebrated for the things that I always apologize for. And I wish everyone I knew would do that and just be happy about being who you are. There's only one you. Own it. As long as you're not hurting other people. You know, I wouldn't say this to Adolf Hitler. But
I think
I say
Annie,
I'm the only one. I'm the only one laughing.
no, I gave that a half laugh, a half hand. I do think though that you now are hitting a chord, your TikTok, your book, all of it, because authenticity is especially prized right now in this moment that we're living in, politically,
Mhm,
socially, where
mhm.
facts are questioned and truth is opaque. I think someone who's just, free about who they are. Were you always that way? As a kid, as a teenager, in your 20s? I mean, when did you become so free about who you are?
You know, in a way I always was, but in another way I always suffered for it. It wasn't considered feminine to be big mouth like I am. It wasn't considered attractive to be opinionated. So I kind of was this, and I would try and pull back a little and be more feminine and be softer in me. And that was just a lie. That's not who I am. Fortunately, I managed to find a man who likes me the way I am, who likes me because of the way I am. He's very quiet and self-effacing and modest. He didn't want another one like that, you know.
Let me ask you a question in a different direction. I'm just curious. I actually don't know the answer to this, and I've known you for years. What kind of Jew are you now? And how were you raised? And is that different?
My parents were immigrants and very angry at God. My mother, after the Holocaust, they had no use for religion. My mother would say, if there is a God, I don't like him. I mean, that was her. And so I
Him.
wasn't brought up with I have zero education, but I always knew I was Jewish and I still identify as Jewish. So I guess I am what's commonly called a secular Jew. And I want to point out something. Jews are the only group that I can think of that still identify with their religion or their culture or their tribe, whatever you call it, even if they don't practice the religion. There are no secular Baptists. Either you're a Baptist or you're not, right? There are no secular Episcopalians. There are no secular Catholics. Uh, with Jews, somebody once told me most Jews don't go to shul because they believe in God. They go there because it's a culture, it's a community, it's a tradition, and they want to be with other Jews. And that I understand. I do understand that.
Do you go to temple on the
No,
high
I don't.
holidays or
Well,
ever?
I have been many times because I've had friends that participate. As a matter of fact, I think Ari, you have brought him here. Donnie Masang, hasn't he been a guest here?
Hmm.
Donnie Masang, who just, I don't know if you know this, Ari, just became ordained. Donnie Masang is a scholar of Jewish religion and history. He knows, and he's also a famous liturgical composer. And so when he conducts a service, I go because I know he's an interesting speaker. Uh, now my son, so my son had a secular bar mitzvah. We had people to the house, and he read a paper about Jewish values. We didn't go into a show. We weren't members of a show. We wouldn't have known how to do that. But I have a grandson, and I have a daughter-in-law who comes from a much more traditional background. My grandson, who is Black, by the way, he's adopted. So I have a mixed race family. My grandson is going to Hebrew school.
Hmm.
My grandson, and here's, of course, you won't be surprised, but as cynical and as secular as I am, when they call me at Hanukkah and little Max lights the candle and says the prayer, the tears are flowing. So I think
Annie,
it's beautiful that he has a sense of belonging that I never had.
that's really sweet. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned Benny, your husband. He's an artist. We can see his paintings in the background behind you, the colorful abstract works. He's a producer, a film producer. He produced Babette's Feast years ago, the Academy Award-winning film. He's also Jewish and Danish, and he has an interesting backstory around being Jewish. Can you quickly tell us about that? If
Uh,
it's not too personal, sort of a
no,
quick,
it's not personal. As a matter of fact, it's really one of the most dramatic stories in my book. I'll give you the headlines right now.
yeah, because the
Benny
real
was
story is in
five
the book.
years old, and it's one of my signature stories. It's what I often tell when I'm invited to speak in person. Benny was 5 years old when the Germans decided. The Germans had been in Denmark for a while during the war. The Germans took over Denmark very easily, not much of a struggle. And after they had been there for a couple of years, they decided to round up all the Jews. And word got out. And all the Jews went into hiding. I don't know how many of you know the story about how the Danes saved almost all of their Jewish population. Danish
Yep.
citizens got to, anyway. Benny's mother and father, they were nervous about making the crossing at night in a boat to Sweden. They weren't sure if they would survive it or not. So they left 5-year-old Benny in the care of Christian friends in the country who told people that he was their nephew visiting from Copenhagen. And Benny was well taken care of by this family. There were two little girls that he played with. Oh, and he was told to tell people that his name was Nielsen. And one day he went to the baker to buy himself a treat. And he said to the baker, I'll tell you a big secret. You want to hear a big secret? Yeah. My real name isn't Nielsen. It's Korzen. Now, the baker could have gone to the local German commandant and gotten a big reward. Instead, he went to the family that was hiding Betty, and they said, you have to be careful. The little boy is talking too much. So then the underground came and got Benny and sailed him across the sea to his parents. And there's another whole story in the book I won't go into, but many, many, many years later, Benny reconnected with the men who sailed him across. But you got to buy the book.
I was going to
I don't
say,
want to
don't,
give
I'm going to
everything
stop you
away.
there. Don't tell us too much. Don't give it away any spoilers, but
Right,
it's a great
right.
story. There's another story in the book that it's from a darker period in your life, but there's some humor there too, as there are in all your stories. It also takes place in Denmark when you were just after you gave birth to your son and you were in a certain state of mind. Can you tell us about that briefly?
Sometimes I get asked the question, what's the most difficult story you've ever had to write? And I was a member of a theater company, and of the Jewish Women's Theater of Los Angeles. Now they're called the Braid. Some of you may know about it. And my producer said, I'd like you to do a story about your postpartum depression. And I said, I can't go there. It's the worst period of my life. It was so painful. It was so horrifying. She said, well, give it a try, see what happens. She was being very smart because she knew as an artist, as a writer, once I started exploring this, I would get into it. So I wrote the story about a terrible, terrible postpartum depression I had. And by writing the story, I think I kind of healed myself in a way of the trauma that was attached to it. And I suggest that to any of you who have been through trauma, it's best to explore it in a healthy way than to try and bury it, because it never gets buried. It's always there and it's always doing bad things to you. I won't go into it again, but I had my baby in Denmark, which is a very bad idea. I had a terrible postpartum, and I was basically hospitalized for the first 3 or 4 months of my son's life. And the ending is, and I say this no lying. This is serious truth here. I am the best mother who ever lived, and I have the best relationship with my son of anyone that I know. So things that start out tragically don't necessarily end tragically.
Where does that come from? And in what way are you the best mother? How are you the best mother?
Because I
What are
say so. Because I just said it. That's it.
but what are you referring to though? Is it because you have good
Well,
communication? Is it because
yeah,
what
when I
specifically?
see my other friends, how shall I say, we talk at least 2 or 3 times a week. Sorry, I'm losing my earbud here. Uh, we talk several times a week. He's concerned about us. He's generous, and he doesn't expect us to keep parenting him. He's willing to to help us out with things, which he does.
Hmm.
And we like to travel together. We like to be together. We have fun together. He always has my back. He's always proud of me. At one point, my son had a big corporate job, which he walked away from because he's got those hippie genes that our family has, unfortunately. And he had a big job. He was head of PR at Audible. I don't know how many of you subscribe to Audible.
I do.
And and he said, I'd like you to come to the office and meet everybody. And he brought me in, and I met his boss, I met his underling, I met everyone there. I don't know that many people who bring their parents to their workplace with great pride and say, I'd like you to meet my mom.
I did. I brought my mom to the LA Times and she
Ah,
brought in her luggage from the airport rolling behind her with like perfume and books and yeah.
well, you
It was
actually
quite,
do have a very close relationship with your family, with your
yeah.
mom. You
And my
do.
dad, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think that's typical, or at least in the way I know it, to the point where you're friends and you share cultural interests and you share humor. I think I'm very blessed. I think you and your mother are very blessed.
Let me ask you, like, turning again in another direction, there's a lot about you out there in the world, articles, you're on stage, you're on screen, there's a lot written about you, there's bios, the book. Tell us something like from your everyday, like, what do you do in your free time? What is there's a lot of downtime
Oh,
between things. What's your regular life like with Benny in Park La Brea in Los Angeles? What do you
uh,
do?
I really am at my
Hobbies?
computer all day long.
You're
Either
what?
I'm writing or I'm trying to work or I'm hustling or whatever, but I really like a work-life balance. I can't be all work. Um, So what I like to do for fun, okay, my favorite thing is to be with friends and or family eating and drinking. That's like number one on my list. Preferably not in my house, preferably that I did not have to do the cooking for. I love restaurants. I love going out. When I'm in New York, I love going to theater. When I'm home, I will admit I'm an addict. I love television. I binge on TV for every night from like 10 to 1 in the morning.
What are
There's,
you watching now?
oh my God, everything. Well, I just finished The Bear. Has anybody watched The Bear?
Oh, it's the best thing I've seen all year. I love it.
Oh
My favorite show.
God, doesn't that just talk about a mother-daughter, an interesting
Oh,
mother-daughter
it
relationship and
should win an Emmy
mother-son
this year.
relationship.
Like, yeah.
Totally, totally. Um, right now, although I'm not a sports person, I've been watching the Olympics because the personal story, Simone Biles' personal story, is just so talk about inspiring, you know,
Hmm.
what she went through and where she ended up. Like I said before, bad news doesn't always have to end badly. She had the baddest news an athlete can get. And can you imagine being at the Olympics and suddenly realizing that you're not able to compete? Can you imagine walking away from that and then being
Hmm.
criticized, publicly chastised for it, and then just doing what you do to save yourself? Again, like I say from my book, be you, be authentically you. You have to know what you need, and you can't let other people tell you who you should be or how you should act. Does that resonate with anybody?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the themes of the theme of the book, probably. Sort of the overriding theme of the book. And I think it's what a lot of people again resonate with on TikTok. Is there anything in your career that you haven't done? An area that, that you'd like to plumb?
Yes, a
You're not
nude
afraid to
scene.
start over. So what?
A nude sex scene. Why aren't they asking me for that? I don't understand. I'm here. I'm available. No, there's a lot I haven't done. I don't have a wide range as an actress. I'm not Meryl Streep. I haven't done Shakespeare. I haven't done a lot. But in my small window of what I can do, I have reached the point where I'm known. I mean, I can always find the funny. I'm known for my comedy timing. Somebody once said, Annie, the producers like you because they know that you can walk in and you know how to get a laugh on one line. So I've taken a very minor talent and I've made it sort of my calling card. And I'm grateful for that. That there's a small thing that I know I can do really well.
Is there something that you still want to do though? Like when we've talked about reinvention, I mean, are you working on another
Well, my
book?
big
Would you like to do?
dream, unfortunately, I'm so old and a lot of my dreams are dying out. My big dream, and I don't even sing that well anymore. Big dream was always to be in a Sondheim musical. I can't
Oh,
imagine anything greater than that for
do you sing?
performer.
Do you sing?
I do, I used to, but I don't now. My range is probably from C to C sharp.
Yeah.
Uh, but doing musicals is a great thing. But actually, I have to say, I really like what I'm doing now. I would just like to keep doing it and doing more of it. I love
Meaning,
this. Well, talking about myself. I like talking about myself and writing about myself. And I'm happy to just do it and do more of it. And the occasional acting job. I just did, again, at my age, I just did my first animated voiceover job. I've never done that before. It was so
oh,
fun. It's
that's
such
interesting.
easy money. You don't have to wear makeup. You don't have to hit your mark. You walk in and the casting director was so happy with me. Oh, Annie, you're great. Where have you been? He said, as if I've been any. He's, where have you been? We need a voice like yours.
What was
So
it for?
some animated TV series.
Hmm.
I don't know much about it. I didn't pay much, but then he called me back in to read for a Disney movie. That I would be that I would be happy to get, you know.
Well, we only have a minute or two left. I was going to ask you one last question so we can open it up to questions from you guys because
Okay.
I understand there's a bunch of them. But we have talked about reinvention. What's next? Like, what is the project you're working on now? Is there one in the pipeline, a movie or a voiceover that you're readying for right
I
now?
don't know. We have Daddy Massang and I have put together a submission. I'm not sure how far we're going to for another book. Donnie is extreme. Donnie describes himself someone as who sees God everywhere, and I see God nowhere. But we're very good and loving and respectful friends. We thought we would do a book about those two opposing points of view. We called it something like a believer and a cynic walk into a bar, something like that.
I
But I don't know if
love
I
that.
got the energy to do another book. It's not just doing the book, it's doing I mean, this I love, but there are other things about the marketing that I don't love so much.
The
Uh,
promotion.
yeah, yeah. Because publishers really don't do anything unless you're a big star. So I'm grateful to Ari that he thought of bringing me here today because I know it's going to result in hundreds and hundreds of book sales because
And
remember,
and hundreds of clicks on my article that came out this morning, which
what's
I
the
should.
name of the article?
Oh,
Is there a name to it?
it's on the homepage of the LA Times today. It's about the Whole Foods founder
Oh,
who sold the company for 13 billion and opened a brand new venture in LA this Saturday. It's a health club, a physical health club of the future that's upwards of $50,000 to join. And it's sort of a profile of him and a first look inside. And anyone who wants to jump in and read it, it costs $1 to subscribe. I get credit for that. Actually count how many people your article like generated. Oh, you got 10
really?
subscriptions. Yeah, so if you don't subscribe to the LA Times, it's $1 for 6 months. Go on and read my article.
You get a 6 month subscription for $1? That's not bad. I
Yeah.
just canceled my subscription to New Yorker. I decided I'm paying too much money for something where I only read the comics and the reviews and they shout out the humor page. So I
Yeah.
just get my neighbors use copies. Oh, I forgot
So
to talk about thrifting. I'm a big thrifter, but I'm curious to hear questions. You mean now, is it time, Ari, for questions? I
yeah,
haven't been looking at,
we have
I,
about 15 minutes left for audience questions. Ari,
oh,
did you want
okay.
to
Yeah,
facilitate that?
sure. I'm here. Okay. First of all, thank you both for the conversation. It was terrific. And getting lots of nice comments from people about the conversation. So I should have mentioned this up front, and I did mention it in the chat, and you kind of mentioned it briefly, but CSP, we dedicate our programs in honor or memory of different people. And this program is in honor of Benny Korzen, because I know Benny from years ago. I think I met Benny through Annie. And Benny's been helping a good friend of mine with a movie project. So Benny was there originally. He kind of ran out, but thank you, Benny, um, for working with Noah and for your art and for Babette's Feast. Okay, so I want to talk about TikTok. I do not do TikTok. I don't, if I look around this audience, I'd like to know how many of you actually do TikTok, because I don't even have it on
Very
my
few.
phone.
I don't expect too many.
Right. But my wife, who's a cantor, a chazan, does TikTok. That's her nightly, like what she does to unwind.
Oh, wow.
And I'm very busy during the day, and I do a lot of other areas of social media. So I just was like, I'm not doing TikTok. That being said, I shared Annie's TikTok with the group, so people can kind of go to this website and see some of these, I think, without having to download the TikTok app. My question is, what was the most popular TikTok piece that you did, Annie? Like, what got the most
I'm
views?
famous for is one that's a mystery to me, about Krispy Kreme. It's gotten it worldly. I was told over 1 billion views, and a lot of people use it as a meme. Or I'm talking to Mackenzie's behind the camera, and I just say, "Have you ever had a Krispy Kreme? Have you had?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Was it crispy?" And she says, "No." And I go, "Right, right." And for some reason, I can't explain why, that's become a huge worldwide hit. And people, when they stop me in the street, a lot of them will say, "Oh, you're the Krispy Kreme lady." I'm a little embarrassed about it because I was just talking about donuts, that donuts ought to be crispy, especially if they're advertised in that way. But
Yeah.
I'm a little embarrassed because I think I hope a lot of my TikToks have a little deeper meaning than that. It seems a little superficial, but I'll take it. I shouldn't complain because that's what put me on the map.
So you're actually a meme, is what you're saying. You are
Well,
a
that
meme.
one is when they
Yeah.
say,
She has
right,
several,
right.
several that were our memes.
Yeah.
I do. I don't know about the others. I say, was it crispy? I even
Yeah.
saw at one point was selling, was it crispy t-shirts, was it crispy
Right.
mugs?
Has Krispy Kreme reached out to you to be a
No, they never
spokesperson?
have, which
Oh,
surprised me. Another donut company did, but we didn't make a deal.
yeah. Did I miss this? Who is Mackenzie, and why is she
Oh, I'm
important
sorry.
to the story?
Mackenzie was the young woman, again, not my target audience. 30, beautiful, was from a very Christian church-going family. We happened to be friends, and she's the one who said, because I was saying, "Oh, I'm doing these storytelling shows, I wish I could find a larger audience." And she said, "Well, you should be on TikTok." And she's the one who put me up, and the first couple of years who produced it and shot them and everything.
So
So
she,
And
yeah.
she,
oh, I was gonna say, Annie, don't you have a meme? It wasn't a meme really, but you had a TikTok that went sort of viral for the opposite reasons because people were angry at you recently when you met a woman in a store and you really liked
oh.
her and you told me the story, you referred to her in a certain way, and then people sort of, what was that
That
about?
happens occasionally, but there's a lot of generational crap going on now with language. Uh, it didn't go viral except, but there was a lot of it. I was interviewing a Black woman whom I greatly admired and was very taken with because she had a certain style, certain fashion style, artistic style that I admired. And I introduced her by saying, "I've met the most fabulous creature today." And people said, "Creature? Would you say that about a white woman? Are you calling her a creature?" I didn't know that that was an insulting phrase to use about a Black woman. I had no idea.
It created
Uh,
an interesting discourse, like a really interesting conversation online.
yeah, because I said, it's not just about the meanings of words. You also have to look at the context and the intention. Does anyone really think it was my intention to insult this woman in any way? Isn't it clear that I'm full of it?
Right.
Anyway, those things can happen. Uh, I try generally not to approach divisive subjects on TikTok. I don't talk about politics. I don't talk about religion, if I can help it.
Are you
I
doing like daily TikToks? Like,
twice a day. I post twice a day.
you do?
Yeah.
And now, do you like, so my wife has her favorite TikTok talkers who she like looks
Oh,
at
really? I
daily.
don't follow others.
I
I
was going
don't
to
follow.
ask. So basically you just put
I'm there
product
as a
up there and you don't
performer.
look at anybody else. You don't have a favorite
Well, I have a
TikToker?
couple of friends. I will look at them, but I don't follow them because they publish who you follow, and I don't want anyone knowing. I want to keep that private. But also, I look at TikTok as my audience. I don't do social media. I don't sit and scroll through TikTok. I shouldn't say that. I'm cheating. I do use Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I don't use it. I use Facebook just for friends and business
Right.
contacts.
So Deborah, what about you? Are you a TikTok addict? And if so, who do you like
I,
to, watch?
I'm actually not on TikTok. I mean, I go on TikTok for research purposes. I mean, I don't love TikTok. I love Instagram. That's my platform. And if anyone's on Instagram, it's just my name. You can find me there. Because I've written about art for so many years, Instagram is all photographs in a little grid. And so it lends itself to visuals. So I'm on Instagram a lot. Like when I did the Whole Food story, they got video of me in the cryogenic freezer and getting all these weird therapies. Often I'm in the health stories I cover, and the videographer will post little videos and photos of me on Instagram. So I do that. But TikTok, I find, except for Annie, who comes up every time I go on TikTok, because it follows your algorithm, what you've recently clicked on. So she pops up on my screen all the time. I go on to search a trend for work. What's lymphatic massage? And I go on to TikTok and there are all these people talking about it.
Oh,
And I go on to look at
yeah.
Annie and I go on to look at a few of my friends. But I find it a little chaotic to navigate. When you first went on, Annie, when Mackenzie first put you on, was it easy for you or were you like, what is this? How did you?
Nothing's easy for me. I'm totally technophobic. I can barely send a text. So
Right.
nothing
And,
is
and
easy
TikTok's
for me.
hard.
I learned how to post, but Mackenzie used to do a lot of that. And by the way, one of the things I discovered again by being who I am, I was brought up poor. My parents were immigrants. My mother didn't work. My father was a tailor. We lived in a 3-room railroad flat in the Bronx. You can see I have a much nicer home now than I did growing up. So I have never, ever been able to waste money or food or anything. I save everything. I read. So I don't shop retail. I never have.
Hmm.
Everything, all the antiques you see in my home, I found at flea markets and yard sales, etc. And so I started talking about on TikTok, not knowing that thrifting is a big new trend with young people. A, because they're broke. B, because they're concerned about the environment. They don't want these
Yep.
fast fashion things like what's the one with the Z, Zara, these things that get
Zara, fast fashion is out, sustainable fashion is in.
exactly. So thrifting, which I've done all my life, is suddenly people are coming to me, where did you get this vintage necklace I'm wearing, anything I'm wearing for that matter? It was all bought on the cheap. So I talk about that, about how to live well without breaking the bank. I do not own a Chanel bag. I never would because she's a miserable anti-Semite. I do not wear anything that advertises a label because I want them to pay me for that. You know what I mean? So in a way, I talk about fashion, but in a way I'm anti-fashion, if that makes any sense.
How do you decide what you're going to talk about on TikTok that day? If you're posting twice a day, is it like you turn TikTok on and decide right then and there, or do you have a
Oh, no,
list of
no.
things? Do you
We
prepare it?
we we film, let's say, twice a week, and each time I do 5 or 6. And I think
Ah,
about
I
it. I
see.
don't prepare, I don't script. And if I mess up, I keep it messed up because I want people to feel that I'm a real person speaking to them, which is what I think politicians should really hire me to help them with. Although now I'm seeing a little more talent in that department, you know.
There is a question about TikTok. So is this like, I mean, I assume you're doing it now because it's a business, right? I mean, you get paid, don't you? By if you have a certain number
Yeah,
of
I missed out on the big payoff, but I get a not very significant amount each month. They've changed the rules. They only pay you on a TikTok that's more than 1 minute long, when I started, you couldn't have a TikTok that was more than 1 minute long, and the audience has very little attention span. So the short ones, the ones that are 30, 40 seconds, they get much higher traffic than the ones that are 1 or 2 minutes. So I'm torn between, do I want a bigger audience or do I want to get paid?
Paid.
So I kind of try and balance the two, but I don't make a lot of money on it. But it has led to other things, and occasional deal with rent to the book to whatever.
So yeah, what's
And
the connection of the book to TikTok? I mean, is that how you got the contract?
yeah,
Yeah.
because they knew I had a platform. They knew I had over 400,000 people who might or might not buy the book. Yeah, I don't think I could have sold it otherwise. It's
Well,
very hard to sell a book.
how did your editor, when you were working on the book, how did your editor shape the book? Was it all about just the platform and the audience, or did they like your actual material and give you creative shaping and feedback? Like,
When
how
I
did
did
it
the book,
evolve?
I have been a storyteller for so many years that I went back, I just found lots and lots of stories that I had performed. I mean, not minute stories, but real story, like the kind I did for Ari, a 12-minute story, a 15-minute. And I put together a collection of those together with very small one-liners like the one you quoted. Like, I'll give you another one-liner, which is one of my favorites. Tennessee Williams was not Jewish. He was, however, a homosexual, which is almost the same thing. And I said, and Jews do not name their children after states. They name them after retail establishments like Tiffany or Macy. So little quotes like that are interspersed in between longer and sometimes more serious essays. But even the serious essays, I hope, have humor in them.
They do, and I don't think I've ever told you this story, but it just speaks to the book's combination of sort of personal, serious essays and humor throughout. About 10 months ago, my stepfather was visiting LA from Philly and had a heart issue and went into Cedars-Sinai, into a hospital that he was unfamiliar with, and my mother was with him by his bedside
Yeah.
every day, in a strange city, in a strange hospital with no support system. And she brought Annie's book. I had just given her Annie's book, and she brought Annie's book with her. And while he was unconscious in bed, she sat there and read it every day and all night. And it's a quick read, so it
No,
only was a few days. But she said in those
no.
early, really difficult days, it really felt like a friend, she said.
Oh, I'm so
Because
touched to hear
it
that.
had these light moments that take you out of the stories with the humor, the one-liners, and then you
I
dive into a
hope.
personal essay that takes you by surprise, that it has some real depth to it and some darkness and universality, and
Yeah,
then you get a zinger and a humor again. So,
I appreciate that. If I may, Ari, I want to respond to one remark somebody made in the chats because it's very true. For somebody, I don't know who, said something about the amazing, what's it called? Mrs. Maisel, that series.
Marvelous Mrs.
Yeah,
Maisel.
I can't watch that series because of the casting. I'm so offended by the casting of that
Really?
show. To
Why?
me, she is so Irish. She is Irish and she is so Irish. She doesn't look Jewish. She doesn't have a Jewish rhythm. She doesn't have a New York rhythm in her speech. To me,
Mm.
again, they refuse. And
The parents
who
do.
else? Huh?
The
Well,
parents
he's
do.
not. Yeah, Carolyn Aaron is a friend of mine. I think she's the only Jew in the show. Carolyn Aaron.
Yeah.
He's not, but he's fine. Tony Shalhoub, I forget. He's Middle Eastern, not Jewish, but he can do it. He looks and sounds it. But the
Yeah.
idea to have this young woman, to me, is so inauthentic, it's so unbelievable as a New York Jewish woman. I cannot watch it. And I can tell you
Mm.
that that was a deliberate casting decision. I assure you that the producer said, let's not have anybody who looks too Jewish. I guarantee it. This is not true, by the way, about men. Jewish looking men are no problem.
Are you still doing Moth readings and like public
I just
story
performed with a
appearances?
Moth. Yeah. I love that. I love that more than anything in the world. I just performed with a Moth in Portland, Oregon. And again, when I talk about we Jews think that only other Jews understand us, I went with a Moth to Boston. And I was doing a piece called My Son's Too Jewish Wedding, about how my daughter-in-law's expectations for the wedding were so much more formal and tradition, a ketubah. I didn't know what that was. All this Jewish stuff that she was insisting on, I knew nothing about, was very uncomfortable about. But in the end, I loved it. And I loved all the traditional things that she brought to it. Anyway, I thought, Boston, how am I going to tell that story in Boston? Boston is this Irish Catholic city. How are they going to be interested in anything about me and my stupid son's stupid Jewish wedding? Well, guess what? There was a reception afterwards. This woman, Kathleen, Kathleen Dennehy or whatever, Kathleen O'Neill comes up and she says, your story meant so much to me. My
Aw.
son is having a big Catholic wedding in 1 month, and I am losing my mind over it. So it reassured me that if you're truly yourself and you speak your own truth, other people from other groups and other backgrounds will respond. And that's why I should run the world, because I believe in people connecting with people, celebrating their sameness, not their difference. And I'm going to tell you a sad story now. When we first started doing TikTok, I told one of my favorite stories that happened to me many years ago. I was on a plane and there was a student sitting next to me, clearly Arab. He was from MIT going home to whatever rich Arab country he was going to. And the food came, and this was in the days when you ordered food in advance, and he got a kosher meal. So yenta that I am, I couldn't help. I said, excuse me, but you're not Jewish. Why are you eating kosher food? Oh, he said, in Boston, all the Muslim students shop only at kosher butchers because we have to eat meat. And I always get teary when I tell this. We can only eat meat that has been blessed by a holy man.
Aw.
And that I found so moving. And I said at the end of the TikTok, why can't we focus on our samenesses instead of our differences? I finished it. I just dropped my ear. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can still hear you.
I finished that story and Mackenzie went, we can never post that story. And I said,
Why?
what are you talking about? It's such a wonderful, humane story. And she said, because there are triggers there. As soon as you say kosher, you're going to hear from all the crazy Jew haters. As soon as you say Muslim, you're going to hear from all the crazy Muslim haters. You do not want to provoke any of this kind of divisiveness. And we never posted it. Now, doesn't that break your heart that you can't
Yeah.
share a sweet, beautiful human story like that?
Well, it's also interesting the difference in storytelling platforms, between you on the stage, you on the screen, and you in social media, within the confines of social media, and how you have to change, for your audience there, what you can and can't say.
Yes, and you can't always predict it, but yes, I do want to be very cautious. I'm just not interested in being in the middle of, the general divisiveness that's going on in the country.
Do you have stories left to tell? I mean, you've told so many stories. Like, have
I
you
wonder about
plumbed that
that.
well?
I wonder about that. I said, is the well going to go dry? But I figured I've lived 80. Look, I can always make it up. Who's going to know? Who's going to?
I guess
Here,
that. Do we
let
have
me
any
tell you
other?
about the time I spent a weekend with George Clooney. He's not going to, I mean, is he going to deny? I mean, but life keeps happening. And I don't only talk about my own life. I make observations about other people's lives. I just did a post which got attention about a woman who came to my house. She's very slim. She's upper class, very classy. I mean, really kind of a socialite, you might say. Hangs out with Rupert Murdoch's family, God forgive her. And she's very slim and fit. And I put out food and it was brunch, right? So I had bagels and French toast and coffee, whatever. And she said, oh, I'm so sorry. I never eat bread or cake. And I thought, well, first of all, I wanted to slap her, but I didn't say that. I said, I don't understand people who choose to live that way. Would you deprive yourself of bread and cake because you wanted to keep your
I don't
perfectly
eat
trim
bread or
body?
cake.
Oh no. What? Wait a minute.
You're
I've
going to
eaten
hate
with
me now.
you. I'm gonna hate. That's not true. You're a lying liar. I've eaten with you.
Yeah, but never bread and cake.
You've never had, you don't eat pizza or cookies?
I do. I don't eat cookies. I eat the cheese off the top of the pizza and the sauce. I went to your house for lunch recently and I had carrots and broccoli and hummus and all that stuff.
Why? Why do you do that? I mean, why don't you do why? You see,
It
I'm
I
doesn't,
think
such a
that's the
carboholic.
subject for our follow-up, session online, I
a
think, because
wellness, a
we're out of
wellness
time.
Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a wellness expert now for the LA Times. So let me wrap it up with two quick questions. First of all, if people want to see you live in LA, is there something coming up that we could like advertise now?
Oh, that's interesting. I'm going to do a story August 30th. I would have to send you can I
Yeah,
send you
send me.
the
Yeah, and
yeah,
are you
I'm going to be in
traveling
a
with
storytelling show in a couple of
are you
weeks
traveling with
in
the Moth?
LA.
Are you traveling with the Moth or the Braid
I'm
anytime?
waiting to hear from them. I
Okay.
hope in the fall I will be traveling again with the Moth. But the storytelling show I'm doing is at a place called the Crow. It's supposed to be a great place in Santa Monica. And
Okay.
I think it's Friday, August 30th.
If you share it, oh, Shabbos. If you share it,
Oh,
no,
sorry.
it's okay.
Sorry,
It'll be
folks.
before Shabbat. You'll start early for us, but I'll share it with the
Yeah,
crowd.
we'll do a matinee for you.
As long as you light candles before you start and do the blessing.
Okay.
Okay. And then I guess there's a question for you, Deborah. Thank you. First of all, thank you for the interview. So how did you become friendly with Annie? I mean, it seems like this is more than just
Oh,
a,
we should tell them who our
yeah.
friend
And so
is.
tell
Oh my
Well,
tell
we
us
God.
have
that
a
story and then we'll
we
wrap it
have
up.
a mutual friend. There's not really a story behind it, but one of my closest, oldest friends of about 25 years is Laura Friedman, our next congresswoman
Yeah.
that is going to be taking Adam Schiff's seat. We hope
We're
if she
going to
wins
have
the
a
general.
Jewish woman in the House of Representatives.
And
And
she is
she's
a dear
old
old
friend
friend
of
of Benny and Annie.
Benny gave her
And
her first job out of college.
yep, it went to back when she
Yes,
was in
so we're
film.
very
And
excited. We're going to have a friend, a Jewish woman. Are there other Jewish women in
from the
Congress?
East
Yeah, there
Coast.
appear.
I'm sure there
East
are.
Coast
Yeah.
Jewish woman, very progressive. But anyway, she was very good friends with Annie and Benny, and she introduced me to Annie and Benny over 2 decades ago. And we've sort of come in and out of each other's lives, periods where we saw each other less, periods where we saw each other more.
Oh, wait a minute. We forgot the
Lots of
most
dinner
important
parties.
thing. There are a lot of women here. Deborah just broke up with somebody. Who's got a son, a brother-in-law, a nephew, a next door neighbor? You can see what you see is what you get. She's
Well, what
gorgeous.
we
She's
need a little
smart.
more information, probably at least age range, Deborah.
Well, I mean,
What's your
at
age
this
range?
No,
at
not
this
yours necessarily, but the person you're
No,
looking
at this
for.
stage,
the
I'm
age.
flexible. I'd go like 10 years in any direction.
Now, what is that? What is that?
I would go, I guess, 40s to 60s.
Well, you know what? When Annie sees George Clooney this weekend, Annie, just maybe
See what I
ask
mean?
her.
Maybe he's got a friend.
Is
Maybe
she
he's
not
got
the
a
best
friend.
yenta that there is? She's a yenta through
Yes.
and through, like a
I
Yes.
funny
forgot
yenta.
that. No,
It's a
but I'm
good,
serious. Deborah's really easy about meeting new people, and you
and
see
Deborah
how
lives in
charming she
LA,
is.
and so, okay.
Right.
So
I would have worn something nicer if I realized,
But
I would have
I'm
put
going
some
to
makeup
take
on.
exception. 10 years older is too much. I'm taking exception to that one.
well, I don't, what's the age range, Deborah? Give us just before we wrap it up here. What are you
Do we
looking
say
for?
like, mid 40s
Mid
40s
40s? Mid
to
40s. Okay.
60
Okay.
to
Okay, people.
late
Okay,
50s, mid 40s to late
CSP
50s.
crowd, please start working. You can email me. Can I share your email, Deborah, or do you want them to
Yeah,
email me? Okay,
yeah.
I'll share Deborah's email. You can, and she wants pictures, little backgrounds. Okay, so let me wrap. Let
See,
me
this
wrap
can be
up.
the CSP,
Right, we're going to have a CSP follow-up program.
the
It's all about.
CSP
It's
dating
going to
site.
be dating Deborah.
That's a good
It's called
idea.
Dating Deborah. There'll be TikToks by Annie. There's a lot of stuff going to happen here. So, so first of all, thank
But
you both
seriously, if
for.
you haven't read Annie's book, I mean, it is just charming and lovely, and it walks that fine line between being funny, but also being universal and insightful and deep, and then it makes you spit soda out your nose because it's very funny.
Right. So I'll send the link again. Buy Annie's book, read it. Can I give them your email, Annie, so people can respond to you directly? Is that okay? Or do you not want me to?
You know what? Yes. Okay.
Okay.
It's Korzen Annie at Gmail. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So you can buy the book. And you know what? I always say bring books to services for holidays. Our holidays this year are late. So you can get the book now and get it ready and then put it in your bag and then just laugh during services. People are enjoying the service.
That's a great
So,
idea.
so thank you, Annie, for sharing your time. I hope you enjoyed this platform, Annie. I know you were like wanting
I
to do it in
loved it. Are
person,
you
but look, you've
kidding?
got people from around the country and the world here today.
This
I
is
do.
great.
How do I know that? How do you, can
Oh,
you
okay.
I
say that on
I
know,
date
screen?
long
I know,
distance. I date
I
long
know.
distance. I didn't realize this was an international crowd.
It is. Oh no, this is
I'm
definitely a
just kidding.
national crowd. I mean, if you all around the United
Oh,
States are
all
here.
right. Well, there you go.
Definitely East Coast, New York,
Oh yeah,
Boston.
I'm all
I'm
back
Oh,
from
on the East
Boston.
Coast all the time.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
from
from
the East
Boston,
Coast.
which Annie denigrated. I grew up in Boston, which is a nice town.
It
I was
is a
just in
nice town. There are plenty of
Philadelphia. That's
Jews
a
in
did you
nice.
Boston.
see that wonderful show recently? People Like Us, is that what this Boston, this Jewish comic from Boston?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you haven't seen it? It's brilliant. It's
No,
about
you
this
send me the
guy.
link. I'll look it up.
Okay.
And so I want to thank Annie. Thank you everyone. Buy Annie's book, and also Deborah. Thank you. It was a terrific interview, and
Oh,
we'll
it was fun. I'm playing hooky from work right now, so
please
don't
read.
tell anyone. I should be,
Right. Right.
yeah,
Please read Deborah's article. I'll send the link again, and
yeah.
know that Annie has said
Subscribe for
anybody.
$1.
Annie just told me by email. Anybody that buys her book gets a free 1 year membership at the $50,000 a year club that Deborah wrote about on
Yes,
Benny, our honoree.
You
So
got to
absolutely.
talk to John Mackey about
Absolutely.
that.
My
go to the
pleasure.
club and say Benny Korzen sent you, and you'll get a free 1 year membership.
That's right.
No, the funny thing is, Annie, they'll actually believe me. So just so you know, Benny's in a lot of trouble now. Anyway, thank you all.
Anyway, Ari gave me the greatest gift anyone can give me, which is an
Money?
hour to talk
Oh,
about myself.
okay.
There's nothing I like better.
Oh yes, when she has a dinner party or a luncheon, she has everyone
That's
come
right.
at the same time, so we can only 11 people, right, or 9 to 11 people sit in a
12,
circle.
always 12
Always
people.
12 arrive at the same time, so we can have
Oh,
a big conversation about one topic, preferably her.
oh.
That's
Maybe
right.
maybe a CSP fundraiser we can do is like you can have a meal with Annie, Benny, Deborah, and some guests. I'll talk about anyway. Here's the thing.
Oh,
It's true.
oh,
Annie's right because I usually pay people to speak, but actually Annie paid me for this program. So thank you, Annie. I
it's true.
appreciate it. Not
I
true.
got to go back to work since I'm playing hooky right now.
Me too.
Oh,
Okay,
It's
thank you,
nice to
everybody.
see.
I gotta take a nap.
Okay.
Nice to see
Annie, you
everyone.
take a
Thank you
nap.
for
Deborah,
coming.
nice
Ari,
meeting you.
Nice to
can you
meet
stay
you.
on for a minute, Ari?
No, but I'll call you back because if I'm on,
Okay.
well, I
Oh,
can stay on,
okay.
but then
It's not
everyone
important.
has to leave, but I'll call
What
you
do
back.
I
Yeah,
click
it's
on
not
to?
important. Goodbye, everybody, and thank you so much for being here.
Bye. Nice seeing you
It's
all.
so weird doing these things in total silence. I will never get used to it.
You did well.
What do
You
I
did
click
well.
How
on
can
to
you
like
tell? How can you
to undo
tell?
it? To get out? What do I click on to leave? There's no leave button.
Oh, no, I can end. Well, you
Oh,
can't. Actually,
are
you
you
can end.
recording this? Are we going to be
Yes.
able to, can you send me the link so I can send it
Yeah.
to people
Yeah,
to watch?
I'll be cleaning it. People are still here. They're like in this private conversation. No,
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
call you back. It's okay. Bye.
All right.
I gotta run.
Bye.
Bye.
So are we leaving?
Yes.
Okay.
Bye.